Hello there and welcome back to War Thunder. Today I present you a very nice tank, which is the P40 Leoncello, and it is a battle rating 3.3 medium tank, and it is one of two Italian tanks that we have currently in the game. With this tank, also my journey through the battle rating 3.3 tanks with a tank review ends here after I have shown you the Sherman, the Panzer IV, the T38 prototype, and also after the Genu I presented you the Cromwell Mark V, and the French also have at this battle rating a Sherman. So this will be the 6th tank review in this battle rating, and so this journey comes to an end, and it is also very interesting because I learned a little bit from it. So usually you know what every tank has, kind of its armor, but to go back after a high tier and to just read joy or finding joy in low tier gameplay and learning how the dynamic in low tier gameplay is, and how important skill is compared to just driving your tank, compared to behavior of rather newer players, because it doesn't take long for you to reach battle rating 3.3 in comparison to rank 5. I think it is really interesting and was very entertaining, and also full of information for myself and hopefully for you as well. So the P40 Leoncello, in a nutshell, it's kind of a weird mixture between a M4 Sherman and also a T34 with some very interesting shells and a few things going for it. By no means is this tank overpowered, but I think a lot of the success that I had in this tank was down to the fact that my enemies didn't know my capabilities. So I have no idea how the rest of the Italian tech tree will actually, work out. But if it is anything close to how this tank performs, I'm in for it, because it was fun, it was entertaining, it was straightforward, and from time to time I could bounce a shot, and I could make it work really nicely. So let's begin, and as usual I want to begin with the armor, and first we want to have a look at the hull. The majority of the hitting area is 50mm at 45 degrees of angling. So talking about angling, the side armor is 45. You can angle it at 40, 38 degrees and have, actually much better protection, and that is good enough to give you a decent protection against the shells from a T34 1940 or the prototype, and some other low penetration tanks. Panzer IV with the anti-tank 75mm gun with the long barrel just doesn't give a damn about it, but you're mostly to fight alongside them, so that's not a big issue. We also have this driver's hatch that might, catch some people by surprise, like with the T34-85. It is much thicker, gives you much more protection. This part here is a bit thinner and, same angling. Lower glacis is a bit of a weak spot. This step here should be an auto ricochet zone. Then we also have here the 40mm to the rear. That's not extremely thick, but it's better than 30mm, like I guess on the Panzer IV or 38 on the Sherman. And with decent angling, you might ricochet some. But this tank is, about constantly changing your angling to your opposition to confuse them a little bit at lower tiers, because this is still a rather rare guest on the battlefields. But if they bypass here the structural steel of chassis, the road wheels, and the front wheel, the tracks, and those side skirts, 40mm is still 40mm. Now, why am I making such a fuss about just 40mm? Because I bounced so many shells and I cannot really explain it why. I don't think it's bias or, premium pay-to-win stuff. It's mostly down to that this is a rather rare guest on the battlefield, so they might shoot here expecting their shell to overpenetrate or to overmatch the armor or interact with it, and it just bounces. And the same goes with the turret, so it's 45mm and at the front 50mm, rather flat, so in practice German AAA could punch right through there. However, the majority of people will shoot here, and that's just 48mm. However, there is a second plate behind it that's also 48 millimeters, so that's effectively 100 millimeters. And we have some flat parts, but also some angled parts, where we then go up to 200 millimeters combined armor thickness. We have no cupola, the roof is very well angled, and yeah, the top is 15 millimeters, 20 millimeters, so you're still vulnerable to 50 cals, and the rear is also 40 millimeters. It is not a KV-1 that you angle and you're nearly invincible, but it has some surprising armor for a medium tank. It's a bit trollish, so my best guess is shoot here, because that is rather flat, or shoot here on the turret, but not the turret gun mantle, because there is an overlay of effectively 100 millimeter plus. Angle the tank, you have some additional protection, and so the tank is, yeah, pretty solid. I like it. The X-ray reveals we have 4 crew members, and we have a lot of ammunition. We have around about 20 rounds here in those side ammo racks, and the rest of the 63 rounds or 43 rounds is here, with 1 shell being in the breech. This transmission is here in the middle, so if you shoot to the left or right of it, as I said in the armor, so here and here, you bypass it, and when you have an APHE shell, then good night sunshine. 4 crew members. The interesting part about this is that even when you lose all 2 crew members in the turret, you are still combat operational, because when this guy, machine gunner, gets back as gunner, it seems like the tank loses barely any reload speed. So like maybe 6 seconds, and you can continue fighting with just 2 crew members. Replenish one of them, and you have again 2 crew members in the turret. So that's pretty nice. So the tank is pretty solid, I have to say. Let's move on to some other stats. As usual, I want to begin with the mobility, and as we can see, while we do not have the weakest engine and we are not the heaviest tank, we have the weakest horsepower to ton ratio. But the tank feels a bit more nimble than the Chinook, and all that I can explain it with is that it has a bit better ground pressure, bit better ground resistance stats on all terrains, but you have some at times significant drawbacks in terms of actual mobility compared to the T-34, the Cromwell, and you are also quite a bit behind the German comparable tanks. The top speed is also rather low at 40 kilometers an hour, but again, you kind of reach it, and so I'm pretty okay with it. It's not a speed demon, but eventually it will reach its target zone, and it's not that much worse than the main competitors. The reverse speed, however, is the second worst. It's not a massive drawback, and I think thanks to your armor, where sometimes you can take a hit and survive it, it is not as much of an issue as with the Cromwell, for instance, that is, you know, really relying on running. It also has some armor, but it doesn't really feel like it's that much of a problem with the P40 as it is with the Cromwell. But it also has no neutral steering. So the mobility overall, despite the stats here, is a bit better than it looks, but it's again not a speed demon. Now let's talk about the business end of the tank, and let's talk about every mafioso's favorite gun, the Ansaldo L34 75mm gun. We have a decent amount of ammunition, the caliber is kind of average, the reload is excellent with 5 seconds, so you're on par with the Sherman and the Cromwell, which is actually pretty important if you later on talk about the ammunition. And the turret rotation speed is a bit on the slower end, so you can't just swing the turret around and blast at everything like the Sherman with its stabilizer or the Cromwell with its excellent 12 degrees of gun depression, because you have quote-unquote just 10, which is still very good, but kind of average as well. The gun elevation with 23 degrees, however, is nice. It is always good to have the very good stats in every aspect. So 23, you can actually threaten aircraft. You do not have a heavy machine gun like the Sherman, but it's still okay. And then we also have the kind of average elevation speed of 4 degrees per second. So we have again some solid gun handling with a high rate of fire. But you know, much like a little bit with the Sherman, it is important to have this high rate of fire, and that brings us to the ammunition. The first shell type that I want to present you is the Granata Perforante 75/32. It's an APCBC round, and it has a decent muzzle velocity of 624 meters per second. Not as impressive as, I guess, the Panzer IV, but you know, you have 270 grams of TNT filler. 270 grams. That's nearly doubling the TNT equivalent that the T-34 1940 or the prototype has in its APCBC round or APHEBC round. And also much better is that you not just have a fuse sensitivity of 15 millimeters, but a fuse delay of 1.3 meters. Just to give you an impression how much TNT equivalent that is 2 grams less than in the Russian 122mm BR471 APHEBC rounds. That is a lot of damage. But with so much damage potential, also you need a drawback, and that is practically the worst penetration out of this shell type in comparison. Just 75 millimeters is not a lot, and you're not a Russian APHEBC round that has kind of a very good normalization. You are a APCBC round that loves to bounce at angled armor, but it's still a lot of damage. But that's not all with this tank. There is a second stop shell, which is the Granata 75/32. Again, okayish muzzle velocity, 553 meters per second, but the penetration is not very impressive with just 9 millimeters. But that's not really a bad thing, and also the lack of a heavy machine gun is not that much of a problem when it comes to fighting lightly armored vehicles, because you have also a tier 1 upgrade, which is a heat shell. And it's this EPS M42 heat shell that is really interesting. Same muzzle velocity of 552 meters per second like the HE shell, and we have 100 millimeters of penetration at any distance, and very good, you know, typical heat normalization versus angled armor. And we can hull break a lot of the enemy lightly armored potato trucks, flak vehicles. All this stuff you can just wreck. And now you kind of see where the high rate of fire is necessary, because you need to switch the ammunition type. My primary shell is the EPS M42 heat shell, and then I have as a backup finishing shell when the enemy is dead in the water, to just not having to pick them apart with every single crew member, or you know, relying on ammo rack. No, I just blast them with the Granata Perforante. So you kind of see, while it has a nice high rate of fire, it actually needs it to really be effective on the battlefield. So I think you need no HE shell, and you need like a lot of the ammunition as a heat shell, primary shell, and then to finish off the targets where you can aim for the weak spots without getting shot back, or with having the time to flank the enemy. Then to finish him off with the Granata Perforante with the amazing 270 grams of TNT equivalent. So that is kind of nice. However, when we compare it to other nations' tanks, or rather their available ammunition, we can see that the P40 Leoncello is the only tank, together with the Panzer IV that actually possesses a heat shell at such low battle rating, which is really nice to finish off, as I said, those potato trucks and hull break things that normally you need to either have a heavy machine gun for, or yeah, a big HE shell. So this is really nice. And again, the APHE round, the APCBC round, is one of the worst performing shells when it comes to raw penetration power, but has the by far biggest HE filler. There you can see it in comparison even to the T-34 prototype. The muzzle velocity is decent, it's actually nice, but again, nothing special. So the tank is everywhere in between, and I kind of like this. So it is up to you to know against which tank you have to use which shell, where to shoot with it to do which damage, and if you should switch the ammunition or you just should finish off the enemy, how you can angle against which tank, and which tank you just have to prioritize if there are multiple targets in front of you. That is knowledge, that is important, but the tank has a lot of tools that you can work with. To position the tank in a impossible situation gets you punished and killed like any other tank in the game. However, I think I cannot really point the finger at it, what it actually was that makes the tank so enjoyable, but I think it's rather the unknown, and again the very special flavor with the armor, with the firepower, and you know, to surprise the enemy. So now we come to one of the best games that I had in recent time that doesn't really look that spectacular, but actually felt quite intense when I played it. And here we are on the Stalingrad map. Yes, Stalingrad, with a nice not Stalingrad. Everybody can say that. That's boring. That's actually a map that is okay for low tiers. I don't like it at higher tiers, I'm honest with you. Now the situation is the following: the enemy team is already right at the start capturing A, and they have a potato truck there, it seems like, and I'm flanking around, going into the southern part of the map and just try to get myself in between the enemy's front line and their spawn zone to get them from behind. This is not spawn pushing, spawn, you know, camping, something like this. This is a tactical decision to thin out the enemy lines early on. And if I die, well, I already got the kills, I made my impact in the gameplay. And now listen. I heard the enemy tank before I saw him. And with that heat shell, I disabled him, set his engine on fire and put him in place. Now the second heat shell doesn't go through the gun mantle. That is a little bit the unreliability of heat with not extreme high amounts of penetration. But the Granata Perforante does the job. And just in a moment I see some action on the minimap going on. Yeah, there we go. And I see a Sherman. I have the heat shell reloaded. This is kind of what I always do. And there is a pipe between the Sherman and me, so I aim for the turret and to disable his combat capabilities for the moment. Reload the AP CBC round, shoot through the pipe and through the side armor and kill him with the awesome damage output of this shell. Again, I have to say this is as much TNT equivalent filler as a Russian 122mm APHE BC round, the BR471 or BR471B. It just doesn't take any prisoners. It's just awesome. But again, lack of penetration power. So where do we go now? Well, the actual thing is I want to go into the middle of the map and I want to come from behind, because usually this is now a standoff battle at low tiers where the enemy team is in cover and they're firing occasionally at our tanks that are in cover. And so if you catch them off guard, they are usually tunnel visioning, they're usually preoccupied with other things, and so you can get a good amount of hits into them, finishing them off, have their weak side armor where you then can one-shot them with the Granata Perforante. I actually love that name. So I want to reposition myself, look at the aircraft where it is, and I stand still for a moment, and yeah, that's the moment when I catch a shell. So my gun breech is damaged, and now I can tell you a little bit about the smoke launcher that you have. You don't have a smoke grenade or a smoke shell, but you have 5 smoke shells, smoke launchers, and they explode above your engine deck, it seems like. So you have to reverse into the smoke a little bit. So around about 30 seconds repair time, we drop our artillery strike on a spot that's heavy tank. You know, and now it's just crossing fingers if we actually can make the repair before the enemy is rushing us. This is always very exciting, but in the wrong way, I guess. And yeah, let's see what's there. What actually has shot at me? And there I see the enemy. I have the heat shell loaded. I aim for the turret and it kills the loader. And just before I can reload, I dunked the shell into the wall, so that was actually a pretty bad shot. I still stay with the heat shell, and because even against some light tanks from the front, again the APCBC round is right at the edge. You don't have the normalization of the Russian APHEBC round. And we finish off the M24. Nice little tank. Same gun, same ammunition like the Sherman, but 1.5 seconds longer reload at least. So in a firefight, when both shoot at the same time, you should have a reload advantage. So now there is a Stück A, and he's firing at something in rapid fire way. And we kind of come around and we can see it's one of those pesky British tanks. The heat shell doesn't do an awful lot of damage, and we reload the Granata Perforante, and it actually doesn't go off despite going through a doubled layer side armor. We see another tank. It looks like a Sherman. I tried to snipe here the cupola, but it's just too few pixels. Does he come out? Well, it doesn't seem like it, so I seem to have... It seems like I need to flank around. So there is some other action going on, and I ignore here the Matilda that is currently in the smoke cloud because I need to help out my Stück, and we finish off the tank by a heat shell going through the back of the turret. And that is a Matilda, as I said, and we continue our way. We got the gunner, the loader, and we finish off by aiming for the commander, and we actually get the ace just like this. Or my 6th kill rather. So that was escalating quickly. And now, what do you do now? Well, do you do spawn pushing? Do you just overextend your lines? We are not that many tanks. It is not really neck on neck, but we don't also have the quite decisive advantage, I would say. If you look at how many tanks there are, we're currently clustered together around the capture zone, and there is an M16 that killed one of our Pumas. So I'm here looking around this corner expecting some enemies, and I actually didn't get the shot on this tank successfully. So yeah, seems like I have to turn around. There is also now an AC Mark II AA that killed my Stück A, but it got killed in return. So I need to help out my team, and what is that? Oh, that's a hull break for my 7th kill. So we need to thin out the enemy lines. There are maybe 1 or 2 aircraft of the enemy in the air, and we have to position ourselves in defensive locations. That was a nice shot. I actually tracked him, so that was okay. I tried to finish him off, however, that was a bad shot. There is another tank coming in, and we hit the commander and the gunner. But before I can reload, even with this high reload rate, he got into cover. So one by one, I want to finish that guy off. Yeah, that's not good enough. But now, yep, that's the kill, finally. So sometimes you need to pump more shells into the enemy. The question is, where has this M8 gone? It also has a heat shell, so now I actually want to help here my team member, the Panzer F2. It has a good gun, it is important for our team, but he currently gets shot at, and he got, well, set on fire again, so I cannot help him repair. The smoke is currently covering the enemy. I think the enemy is shooting through the smoke, and the M8 actually has finished off the Panzer F2. So I actually saw him with the blink of an eye. There it is, in the open, and we finish him off for our 9th kill. So he came racing towards me. The funny thing is, I need to relocate, find another ambush position where just a few tanks remaining. A actually gets contested by the enemy, so there is at least 1 tank behind our lines. What do we do right now? Oh, M22 Locust actually killed our T60. That's not good. Even less tanks. So now it's getting interesting. Where did the shell come from? There he is. Hello, sunshine. Double ace. Just like this. Beautiful. But that's not enough at the moment. So now A gets captured by my team member, and I'm just waiting in this ambush position. And I'm not looking to my left, which I should actually do. The Typhoon killed our Ju-87. And I hear something. I hear an enemy tank, but I don't know where he is. So this is now very intense, where I do not too much commentary, because I need to figure out where is the enemy. A position so that I can look into this this part of the map without being actually exposed. And I decide to move forwards. You'll never guess where the tank was. That was actually a bit of a delayed information because I saw a Russian tank there. He was behind me. He was right behind me. I didn't see him. He didn't see me. So that was funny. Okay. Now we are equal on points. The match is actually going into some bonus rounds, I guess. Some extra minutes. There are just currently 3 of the enemy team still remaining. And again, I decide to reposition myself carefully, slowly. And there is another tank. And I just hit the engine, set it on fire. Finish off the loader, but that's not good enough. We load the Granata Perforante. He bounces on our turret armor. And we finish off an M3 Lee with 1 shell. That's the power of the Granata Perforante. God, I love that name. Have I mentioned how much I love to say Granata Perforante? Yeah. Stop it, Napalm. Okay. 11 kills. Now we have the points advantage. Some action going on there, maybe. Not quite sure what to do. Oh, yeah. Kill another SPA that didn't look into my direction. So that's my 12th kill. That is quite a lot. Even at low tier. You see, there have to be enough enemies for you to kill. Your team must not kill all the kills that you could kill, and they must respawn. So at this time there is just a Typhoon left in the air, and he killed one of our Yak-1s, and so what to do right now? I think the last thing that we should do is pushing and extending the match if, again, one of those M22 Locusts will rush into the cap and capture it. They've become a bit of a plague, those M22s, haven't they? So a little bit of communication with my team. And that's about it. And I think that was a very well-deserved survivor. Let's have a quick look at the results and see what's what, how much money you actually get for 12 kills at low tier with a premium tank. That's always interesting. So no cap, no kill assist, 82,000 silver lines and nearly 6,000 research points. And a lot of the money comes down to the hero medals, if you want to say it, like you know, the survivor. They by itself bring 7,500 silver lines, which is quite a lot. So the battle time, I think that was close to a flawless performance. I'm very proud that I can present you this game. Yeah, you see it, how I wiggle around with the mouse. I was really enjoying this battle. 2,586 score points being first. But one of the enemy team members has more score points, I guess because he was in an aircraft after his death. I think that was the Typhoon guy. So that's it for me today with the P40 Leoncello. It is a nice little tank. It might not have the most brutal gun, but I think it has all the necessary tools to make an impact on the matches in War Thunder that you played with. And as a relative cheap entry for the Italian tech tree, this might be a nice tank to have. That's it for me today. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the video as much as I did enjoy making it. You give it a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other in the skies and on the battlefields of War Thunder.